I wouldn't have run either.
Okay. I call to order the June 2024 meeting of the Mission Fulfillment Committee of the University of Minnesota Board of Regents. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you to those who are joining us via live stream video and those who are attending in the boardroom or via Zoom. And let us welcome, first of all, also our student representative for today, Flora Yang from the Twin Cities campus. Thank you for being here. Happy to have you. Before we proceed to our first item, Interim President Ettinger, would you like to share a few remarks?
I would. Thank you very much, Chair Johnson. Providing me with an external focus for the past year in the interim president role only works if you have a great provost, and you knew you had a not-so-secret weapon in your pocket for this last year. The rankings of the institution, the research increases bear out the great job being done by Rachel and her deans and really the faculty throughout the university system. Put simply, this university continued to do a great job this past academic year in delivering its mission, and Provost Croson played the main leadership role in accomplishing this. And I can't help but note, but as we bring Rebecca Cunningham on, 2 RCs, it's going to be truly unstoppable.
Whoa.
But I've appreciated the partnership very much with Rachel Croson. We've dealt with a wide array of challenges, and Rachel always provides sound counsel on a multiplicity of topics. So thank you very much for the partnership. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you, Interim President Ettinger. And now we will turn to our agenda. I would like to welcome Bob McMaster, the Vice Provost and Dean of the Undergraduate Education for the Twin Cities campus, and Amy Pelto, the Interim Executive Vice Chancellor for Academic Affairs for the Duluth campus, to the presenters table. They will provide an update on system-wide coordinated efforts in enrollment management. Provost Croson, would you like to get us started, please?
Thank you, Chair Johnson and members of the committee. Vice Provost McMaster, who is here for this presentation, has appeared before the Board of Regents countless times over his past 16 years in this position. And today is his final time presenting before the board, as he will soon be returning to the faculty in the Department of Geography. Bob has been an incredible leader, an advocate, and a partner for me in undergraduate education. Under his leadership, the Twin Cities campus saw the largest improvements in four-year graduation rates of any doctoral granting institution in the country. We have become a national leader in first-year retention rates and many other student success measures, with particular attention to equity and inclusion and removing barriers to timely graduation. I'd like to invite Bob to take a ring around the horseshoe as we thank him for his 16 years of service as Vice Chair.
What's he got that you didn't tell me about?
Thank you all. For our first presentation to the committee today, we'll provide our annual report on system-wide undergraduate enrollment management. Last month, you heard from each of our greater Minnesota campuses independently about their enrollment challenges and their plans to overcome them. Today, as is our practice, we will be reporting on what we are doing collaboratively, what we are doing together to increase and diversify enrollment in our system as a whole. I'm grateful to be joined for this presentation by Dr. Amy Height-Pelto, interim, there we go, Executive Vice Chancellor for Academic Affairs on the Duluth campus, and Bob McMaster, Vice Provost and Dean of Undergraduate Education on the Twin Cities campus. With that, Madam Chair, I will turn the presentation over to Vice Chancellor Height-Pelto and Vice Provost McMaster.
Great. Chair Johnson, members of the committee, thank you for having us here today to talk about system enrollment, and thank you, Provost Croson. I very much enjoyed talking to the board about undergraduate education over these last 16 years on myriad topics. We're very lucky at this university to have great students, great faculty, great facilities, and most importantly, a very strong sense of commitment to providing the very best education on all of our campuses. Today, Vice Chancellor Height-Pelto and I will provide the yearly update on the activities and success of the System Enrollment Council. We will review the history of the council, discuss some of the national and regional level challenges, highlight a few of the collaborations among the campuses, touch on financial support, provide an update on our collaborative marketing effort, and review one of our system-wide retention initiatives. Although the System Enrollment Council was formalized in 2016, there were previous efforts to bring together those with expertise in enrollment on the campuses. Today, the council is functioning extremely well with a strong spirit and sense of camaraderie. The council consists of 2 to 3 members from each campus who have responsibility in some way with enrollment, and an executive committee with the 4 vice chancellors and the Twin Cities Vice Provost and Dean. The council meets nearly every month, either the full council or the executive committee, has a summer retreat and provides regular updates to the provost, president, and this board. The chair and vice chair rotate among the executive committee. In fact, there was just a change in that a few weeks ago as we approach July 1st. The Enrollment Council discusses enrollment targets, financial aid strategies, student success best practices, curricular cooperation, and legislative initiatives. There are a series of national level challenges that higher education is facing over the next few years. One is a so-called geodemographic cliff that most of us will experience over the next decade. We will say more about that shortly. Nationally, fewer high school students are attending college, and this certainly applies to Minnesota. During the 2023-24 academic year, as reported to the board in September, we made a series of adjustments to our admissions practices based on the May 2023 Supreme Court decision on the use of race in college admissions. Race and ethnicity information is now suppressed from application reviewers. The positive news is that we have not seen a decrease in BIPOC students for this cycle so far. Finally, the FAFSA debacle of 2024 has thrown the admissions cycle into chaos, although the U of M managed to provide financial aid statements to students much earlier than many other institutions. We were ahead of the curve there. Our Office of Student Finance worked tirelessly to overcome the many challenges created by this delay in FAFSA processing. The next section of the report will provide some details on the current enrollment landscape for the university. This U.S. map of regional changes in high school graduates over a 10-year period was also displayed by President Ettinger at the May board meeting and depicts the problematic nature of national enrollment trends. Note, this map highlights a continued migration of Hawaii and Alaska towards the U.S. mainland due to continental drift. As a geographer, I'm able to move states around. All sectors of the country, aside from the southeast U.S., are trending downward, with significant 5% declines in the upper Middle West and the East Coast. Aside from California, our campuses recruit most of the students from, obviously, Minnesota, the reciprocity states, Wisconsin and North Dakota. Remember that South Dakota dropped out of reciprocity a few months ago, and Illinois. These are places that will all be facing significant high school enrollment challenges. For the Twin Cities campus, we maintain 8 regional recruiters to build our national level efforts. These are data from WICHE that you're looking at and are periodically updated with new forecasts. And in fact, after several years, a new forecast is expected this fall. So we finally should have a new map and new data. I think the next slide, that one, yeah. This is the wrong presentation. Okay, we use that one. The Chronicle of Higher Education produced a recent monograph on the looming enrollment crisis that documents some of the national challenges that the country is facing. This graph shows the Minnesota projections where our enrollment cliff will be experienced in the early 2030s. According to the WICHE data, we will reach a peak of Minnesota high school graduates in a few years, then a decline after that. There's another uptick in 2032 before the serious cliff is experienced. These models tend to shift the cliff with more current data, but the probability of the cliff remains with each one of the iterations. This slide depicts the higher education enrollment of Minnesota high school graduates by sector. The alarming part of the graph shows the increase for the last 10 years of those not attending college at all, rising from 30% to 40% over this time period. Also note the decline in the high school graduates attending Minnesota two-year institutions, a challenge we have discussed for several years. We are happy to report that this percent of high school graduates not attending college actually dropped somewhat to 38% for the most recent class. So it's heading in a positive direction. All of our priorities in undergraduate education are linked directly to the Impact 2025 commitments, goals, and metrics. The goal is to attract, educate, and graduate students who represent the diversity, talent, workforce, and citizenship needs of the future. One of the Impact 2025 metrics is to increase the percent of Minnesota high school graduates who attend the University of Minnesota. We're talking at the freshman first year level, which traditionally has hovered around 10% of the Minnesota high school graduating class, with 6% enrolling on the Twin Cities campus. For the class that entered in 2021, the system-wide percentage approached the Impact 12% goal, 12% of the Minnesota high school graduating class, but has dropped down a bit to the previous 10%. It should be noted that the Minnesota state system has seen their two-year enrollment increasing in 2023, 2024, which will impact the percentages that you're looking at here. I think we have a slight discontinuity here with the slides. We're very sorry.
That's okay.
I'll talk a little bit about, maybe we can get to this graph here. The next section of the report documents some of the efforts in system-wide enrollment coordination. This is an important slide. The council pays careful attention to the transfer among the campuses. Students that transfer between and among the 5 campuses are referred to as IUTs, or intra-university transfers. This matrix depicts the transfer picture among the 5 campuses. The previous or sending institutions are listed on the rows, and the new or receiving campuses across the columns. For instance, during the last academic year, 114 students transferred from UMD to the Twin Cities, while 24 students transferred from the Twin Cities to Crookston. The number of students transferring within the system, these IUTs, is actually quite small compared to the thousands of students who are transferring and arriving from outside the system. A critical consideration with transfer students is the number of credits that are transferable among the campuses. Transfer credits come in several categories. Those credits that count for the required 120 or sometimes more for graduation, and those credits that can count towards liberal education requirements or major requirements. Any course taken at any U of M campus counts towards the 120 graduation credits. That's pretty much automatic. Courses may count towards the major at the receiving institution if approved by the faculty member teaching the class. Students have several digital tools provided to facilitate transfer, including Transferology, these are national level packages we have, and the transfer evaluation system called TESS, TES. Details on TESS are provided in the docket materials that we provided. Across the system, approximately 62% of courses have direct equivalency towards the major. A new component of TESS is a series of equivalency tables that enable students to quickly identify courses that transfer across the system. This example depicts part of the equivalency table for the Twin Cities and Crookston. So there's one table for every campus compared to every other campus. For example, the table shows that UMTC Accounting 3202, the course number, intermediate accounting, automatically is equivalent to Crookston 5102 with the same name. The equivalency lasts through April 30th, 2028, when that course has to be recertified to maintain the equivalency between the two. So this is a very positive step forward in the ability for our students that are transferring among the campuses to quickly ascertain whether their courses are going to count towards a major. It's a new component of TESS. For many years, the 5 campus directors of admissions have met regularly to share information and best practices. For instance, in the last year, the campuses have worked together on the Minnesota Office of Higher Education, MOHE's, Direct Admit project, where students from certain pilot high schools receive automatic admission to the U of M. We also now have a shared admissions technology position to assist with the common platform Slate. That's the application review platform that we use, although each campus must maintain their own instance of this due to software constraints. Additionally, the 5 campuses coordinate U of M recruitment activity at national and state fair events and other admissions events. There are 3 methods by which the Twin Cities campus shares applications with the other campuses. Share My App, which we've talked about for several years, the U of M Deny List, and the U of M TC Wait List. The graphs that you have in front of you for each of these 3 show the number of applications and the total number of confirmed students as a result of this sharing. There's one for each of the categories. With Share My App, students who apply to the Twin Cities campus are given the opportunity to have their application shared with any other campus. For the 2024 class, 1,945 students requested that their applications be shared. These applications are then forwarded to the appropriate campus, where each campus manages the admissions process. So the number of confirms is a critical piece of this. Of these 1945 shared applications, 117 students confirmed on one of the 4 campuses. Likewise, the Twin Cities shares their deny and wait list, where 93 and 94 students confirmed on another campus. Although these numbers are not large, for some campuses, these confirmations are in fact very welcome, even with the small numbers. And now I'd like to turn the presentation over to Vice Chancellor Pelto.
Thank you, Vice Provost McMaster. The number of curricular collaborations and pathway programs continues to grow among the 5 campuses. This slide provides detail on just one of these collaborations on each campus. Others are provided in the docket materials. Below, we summarize a few of the programs. UMD, the recent integrated degree program allows students to earn a BS or BA in biology at UMD and complete a medical laboratory science certificate from the University of Minnesota Twin Cities. Students from UMD can apply to the program after their junior year, and if successful, they complete 2 or 3 semesters, including summer, at the Twin Cities in courses that apply toward upper division electives for their biology bachelor's degree while also completing requirements for the Medical Laboratory Sciences certificate. At the University of Minnesota Morris, the new integrated Econ BA and APEC MS or Applied Economics MS program between the Morris campus and CFANS was approved at the February 2024 Board of Regents meeting and will begin this fall. This academic pathway offers students the opportunity to earn a bachelor's degree and a master's degree in 5 years. This integrated degree program also emphasizes education in applied economics and provides preparation for students wishing to pursue a career in applied economics. At Crookston, University of Minnesota Crookston, students take the first 2 years of coursework at Crookston and then are given prioritized admission to the mortuary science program if they complete pre-admission coursework and maintain a 2.0 GPA. The 2+2 program provides opportunities to students who may prefer to begin on the smaller Crookston campus or that region before moving to the Minneapolis campus and addresses the expressed desires of rural students and their families. This agreement was formalized in 2023 and is being promoted by both campuses. At the University of Minnesota Rochester, an institution that attracts students who tend to think of healthcare as primarily patient care, the pathway to a master's degree in public and environmental health provides students with an expanded vision of possible career paths. Students who follow this pathway are able to gain graduate credit while still undergraduates, fast-tracking them to careers addressing societal challenges around healthcare. And now I'd like to turn the presentation back over to Vice Provost McMaster.
Another very important Impact 2025 metric is around fiscal stewardship and affordability. Although the actual metric is around controlling student debt, there are several critical initiatives around financial wellness and literacy, increasing scholarship support, finding resources to increase non-resident enrollment, and making certain we maximize financial aid resources. As the board is aware, the newly established North Star Promise that provides free tuition and fees for any Minnesota high school graduate attending a Minnesota public institution whose income is less than $80,000 starts this fall. They were packaging the first students right now. Full details on this last dollar in program are still being worked out. Last dollar in indicates that all other forms of gift aid, Pell, state grant, institutional scholarships are applied first before the North Star Promise is applied. Last fall, the Minnesota American Indian Scholars Program, which provides full tuition and fees for Native American students, but with no income limit, was initiated and has been very successful among our 5 campuses. Unfortunately, the Minnesota State Grant is experiencing a shortfall for this academic year, thus reducing awards at certain income categories. It is important to note system collaboration in the area of financial aid. Similar to the meetings of the system directors of admission, there is a monthly System of Financial Aid Council that brings together the 5 directors of financial aid to discuss current policies, best practices, and challenges in the area of financial aid. One example are the conversations about the implementation of North Star Promise and the American Indian Promise. The 5 directors were also in constant communication during the spring about the FAFSA crisis and the relationship to admissions and how to process that. Now I'd like to turn back to Vice Chancellor Heitepelto.
Thank you, Vice Provost McMaster. A major and ongoing effort for the System Enrollment Council has been in the area of collaborative marketing. This slide provides the background to an investment that began in academic year 2021 with a system-wide recruitment campaign focusing on the unique offerings of all 5 campuses within our system. These exclusively digital campaigns help to bring awareness to the University of Minnesota system as a whole, while also complementing individual campuses' recruitment. There were very positive results in terms of applications, web traffic, and awareness. This collaborative marketing campaign was renewed in academic year 22-23 with an investment in system-wide recruitment, as well as a focus on Crookston, Morris, and Duluth. The specific 2022 campaign objectives were to promote awareness of University of Minnesota as a system with a campus for everyone, increase awareness of the Crookston, Duluth, and Morris campuses, and drive traffic to the campus websites. While sharing these results and indications that the system-wide campaign was a strong traffic driver to the system and system websites. Note that the system and individual campus recruitment marketing efforts are, of course, complementary, and that the data is inextricably combined. This slide demonstrates some of the results from the most recent campaign, which drew nearly 100,000 users to the site. University Relations indicates that the click-through rates were very high, over 28%, 28.36%. When we weren't running a campaign, there were typically 2,535 visits to the University of Minnesota system pages compared to the 98,368.9. I should note that the 98,000 includes traffic to the campus pages as well, driven by the campaign. For just the system traffic alone, that was roughly 80,000 hits, and some of that traffic then was also driven to campus sites. This data is compared with data from the same time frame, so we're looking at January 1st to June 1st, 2022, where there was no paid system campaign, and January 1st to June 1st, 2024, when there was. Now I'd like to, a last area we will discuss involves the retention of students, and now I'd like to turn it back over to Vice Provost McMaster.
Although much of the effort in retention obviously involves retention of current students in order to ensure timely graduation, especially around first-year retention, the critical first indicator of success. A recent re-enrollment effort has targeted those students who have dropped out or stopped out. This pilot, which utilized a private company for the outreach, was started in summer of 2023 and targeted hundreds of students across the 5 campuses who had dropped out within the last 6 years, especially students who had left during the pandemic. As this slide illustrates, each campus had some success in re-enrolling students, with 109 total students returning to the University of Minnesota. In terms of the return on investment, it was considered a great success, the pilot, and we're continuing the re-enrollment project, targeting an even greater number, around 5,000 students for this fall, to try to get them to re-enroll on one of the 5 campuses. This re-enrollment project is different than another project that will be discussed by Vice Provost Watkins in your next presentation, in that it focuses on students who have dropped out fairly recently within the last 6 years, while his program focuses on individuals with some credit, no degree, who left the system longer than 6 years ago. And now, finally, I'd like to turn the presentation back to Vice Chancellor Heite-Pelto.
Thank you, Vice Provost McMaster. We would like to thank you for the opportunity to present to the board. And now at this point, Vice Provost McMaster and I are happy to entertain questions from the board. Thank you. And we put a few sample ones up, but we'd love to hear your questions.
Thank you all very much for your presentation. So as they've invited you, I invite you as well. Please ask questions and follow up with this presentation. Any thoughts? Okay. Regent Davenport.
Thank you, Chair Johnson. Going back to the slide about TES, the transfer, I'm trying to find that number quick. Anyway, what I'm wondering about, yes, thank you. That is extremely useful to students and high school advisors. And it said new, but haven't we been doing this for a long time? And have we been doing this with Minnesota State?
Chair Johnson, Regent Davenport, yes and no. We do have the Minnesota Transfer Curriculum,
Right.
which for the general education requirements harmonizes them across both systems, Min State and U of M. So, and as I think you know, you were involved in this way back, if a student finishes, let's say at Normandale, her or his general education requirements, transfers to the U of M, they're completely done. This is really specific to what you're looking at now, to transfer within the University of Minnesota system, where the information was available in tests, but it was much harder to get at. You'd have to you'd have to figure out what course you wanted, type it in, figure out what campus you wanted to go to. And now this is a button on the website where you can just ping on it, immediately go in and figure out all the transferability among the courses.
Glad to hear it, because it was really confusing before. So thank you for cleaning that up.
Good news. Regent Taurabi.
Thank you, Chair Johnson. And thank you, presenters, for the information. I had a question, a question, I guess, about high school, those who are choosing to go to higher ed after high school. I'm curious if you have any data about sort of them maybe not going directly to college, but delaying it. And do we know anything about that? Like, is that group of students just delaying their entrance to higher ed? Or are they really not going at all? I mean, all data still says higher ed pays off, right? Even if students choose to wait. So I'm curious, do we need to change our strategy because, young people are choosing to delay their enrollment? Or are we hoping to just capture them right after high school if they're really not going, right? Any?
Chair Johnson and Regent Taurabi, members of the committee. What we're looking at in terms of the data are students who have not enrolled after 1 year. So that's the first point in time that we measure. We will catch the other students eventually who take 2 years or 3 years out with other data that we have. But the kind of standard we look at in terms of the Department of Education data is what's happening within the first year.
Wait, sorry. Others ahead of you, sorry. Representative Yang.
Thank you, Chair Johnson, and thank you, Vice Provost McMaster and Vice Chancellor. I don't want to pronounce it wrong. Hida Pelto? Perfect. I'm just curious about what conversations have happened sort of behind the scenes about dual enrollment programs. I had a student come up to me and tell me that about 50% of PSEO students eventually choose to enroll at the University of Minnesota. And just going off as a follow-up question to Regent Taurabi's question about what conversations have happened around dual enrollment programs and whether we think that could potentially support us as we head towards the enrollment cliff.
Okay, Chair Johnson and Representative Yang, members of the committee. Dual credit is really critical for our enrollment process. And there are multiple categories here, as you know. There's PSEO, where students are actually taking their courses on our campus or online courses. There's college in the schools, where they're taking our courses at the high school. There's AD, and there's the International Baccalaureate. So really the gold standard in many ways would be PSEO, because those are students who are taking our courses and have passed our courses. And so we do, in fact, as we think about moving forward, plan to nudge up the number of PSEO students that we can take. Not all PSEO students, as you know, come here, but the probability of enrollment, if a student does go through PSEO, significantly goes up. And they know about the university, they know they're prepared. So it's a critical program, and all 5 of our campuses have PSEO as part of their enrollment project.
And I would add, Madam Chair Johnson and Regent Yang, that we are also seeing increases in those numbers. And that is a positive sign, and we'll continue to work on those efforts to improve, to get those students to transfer. That is an area of growth.
Thank you. Regent Turner.
Thank you, Chair Johnson. So I'm going to refer again back to the Academic Health Committee and what I heard this morning, and about the 6 health sciences and how they're starting to get to different programs to introduce to the junior high, the different health careers. And so I'd be very much interested in it doesn't just have to be the health careers. That junior high is I always go back to my own, where I got interested in healthcare when I was 12, junior high, 7th grade, as a volunteer in a nursing home. And I've never thought to do anything else but healthcare, and knew that college had to be a part of it. And so that's a really prime age to be introducing children to different careers that you would need college for. And I'm just wondering if any of the towns are doing any of that, Morris and Crookston, are you guys going out to your communities in that junior high level when kids are actually starting to think of what they're going to do? And furthermore, it kind of focuses them during high school, not to just sit there and waste time and to actually try to get good grades and things like that. So what kind of efforts do we have for just general college in that kind of, like I said, teach all the different careers that they could start to think of when they're 12?
Thank you, Madam Chair Johnson and Regent Turner, for that question. Yes, we do have efforts that do go all the way back into junior high. The Office of Admissions and Counselors visits schools. Faculty and alumni sometimes make school visits, although they more often partner with the admissions office. We have faculty often participate in visit experiences on the road. We've had a road trip through the Iron Range, for instance, from the Swenson College of Science and Engineering. We have specialized admitted students days that various colleges host, and we bring students in from schools. And we also have a lot of camps and some of those are underway right now, where they're focused on careers in STEM or careers in certain areas that invite students within a certain age group to come and attend campus, meet with professors, have experiences, things like robotics, things in the health care area.
Ideas.
Right. And those things I am familiar with on our campuses. Do you want to particularly add any that are going on that might be somewhat different? I think this is fairly standard.
Yeah. Chair Johnson and Regent Turner, members of the committee, I can't speak explicitly to all the efforts that are going on in K-12 and middle school, although to Vice Chancellor Heitepelto's point, there is a lot of activity with our admissions offices and outreach at all levels to talk about all the opportunities among our 5 campuses and the careers that might be possible, and also pushing students to the websites where there's very rich information on this. When they arrive here, though, I can point to that. We have a pre-health advising center that works with all students who are interested in anything from nursing to medical school to occupational therapy to public health, and to help them or prepare them for a path into these careers, including coursework, pre-coursework taught by medical doctors and others, to help them understand what these careers mean. Another example of something we've done recently, which I think is just terrific, is we have a brand new shiny major on the Twin Cities campus, and it's a Bachelor of Arts in Public Health.
Oh, yeah.
And that we think is going to be extremely attractive to undergraduates. We already have a minor in public health, and many of those students will probably migrate into that major. And again, we know that there's just tremendous demand for public health workers that this will serve.
Provost Croson?
Yeah, if I might chime in as well, Chair Johnson and Regent Turner. So in addition to all of the activities that our admissions and recruiting teams do, there's a whole set, in addition to the summer camps that Vice Chancellor Heitepelto mentioned, there's a whole set of activities that are mostly kind of in the public outreach space, but which I think serve this purpose. So I got a chance to bring my 2 teenagers to the Physics Force show. I don't know if anyone's gotten to do that, where you come to Northrop and they have, all of the experiments on stage and they light things on fire and it's all super exciting, right? And although my kids are 17 and 15, they were by far the oldest children there. Right? A lot of elementary school kids. And so I think a lot of the programming that we do that's aimed at the public and when you see the school buses lined up on University Avenue, I think that's part of it as well. Again, it's not about a specific major. It's really about how wonderful and exciting it is to be at a university.
Right. Regent Gully?
Thank you so much, Chair, and thank you, presenters. Really appreciate it. I'm actually going to push the other direction, but first I do want to say my daughter also just went to the Wise Chem camp, and she's a sixth grader and loved it. Came back super excited about things at the university, and she would like to go into healthcare. So I wanted to just ask the opposite. About the opposite demographic, I guess, which is older people. So I used to work in the Minsky campuses, particularly at Metro State, where they do just an amazing job at bringing in mid-career students and really going after people who already are well into their career and they've like figured out something that they want to do. And Metro does a great job of telling them, like, hey, if you know what you want to do and you will need to get a degree to do it, you need to learn some skills to do it, we've got you. We will help you figure out the financing, we'll help you with everything that you need to get here and do this work. And the faculty are great at it too. I just wonder, I don't think that the University of Minnesota is ever going to be, we don't want to be Metro State, right? Like, we're a different kind of university, but are there ways that we can make ourselves more accessible to mid-career students as well? Are there more programs that we could do, or is there more that we could do? Yeah.
So Chair Johnson and Regent Gully, members of the committee, I think some of the re-enrollment projects that we're talking about today, both now and later, really get to that point. For students who might have come to the university for a year or two, weren't quite sure what they wanted to do, or for other reasons had to leave, and are ready now to return, but they need some guidance on what pathways would be useful. And so we're putting together the infrastructure to really enable that. I also should mention the College for Continuing and Professional Studies, CCAPS, and one of their major roles, in fact, is to try to guide continuing students, older students who are coming back, into certain pathways at the university. So I think we're heading in that direction pretty effectively now.
Thank you. I just like to add a comment to it for myself, and probably others around the table. I was very glad to be able to help open the doors of education for women in our lifetime, and to advance degrees and other things. Now we're kind of seeing some concerns about men, young men not seeing maybe as much value to education and not enrolling as much. And are we doing anything about that? What do we know about that? How do we communicate to them the value of education and how that might, affect their lives? Anything?
Chair Johnson and members of the committee, this is a chronic national problem, and we have talked about that before. And I think this year, for last year, fall 2023, in the freshman class, the ratio was about 46 to 54% women. And it's been even more misaligned in the past. I've talked with the Department of Higher Education about this, the commissioner and many others, and we don't really have a great solution now, to be honest. What we're seeing is a higher percentage of males going into the workforce right out of high school for lots of complicated reasons. And I think moving forward, what we're going to have to do is be more vigilant with our male population, high school male population, about the importance of getting good grades and doing well, because there's the admissibility issue, but also the value of higher education and the lifetime of earnings, not the immediate return, but the lifetime of earnings and benefits that you get. That's not a great answer, but I think that's kind of where we are.
Start. And Regent Turner.
Thank you, Chair. Just a heads up is what you're competing against is, frankly, a lot of trades jobs that they can get really, a lot of them are union or not, but even if they're not, they get really good wages and benefits. And so I don't know if there's a magic way to be a carpenter and get a college degree at the same time. I don't know. But if you can find a way to put the two together, I remember back in the day when you went to a VOTEC, back when I was a kid, there was no way that there was any college attached to it. You got a certificate or whatever, and then they kind of wised up and you could actually get a 2-year degree or something like that. But that's where the guys are going.
Exactly.
They can go work on an oil rig up in
Alaska and make 120,000 a year. Well, when you're 19, that's really, kind of attractive.
Maybe I should go there and sit back
Yeah,
there.
exactly. Got your parka and your boots and get on up there. Go ahead. Those things are true, but on the other hand, it's kind of always been that way. That's not really new. So when I was a teenager, finishing high school and college, I worked as a pharmacy tech in a hospital in Minneapolis. I got paid $1.40 an hour, and my cousins worked on the railroad and just made for the summer. But and they made many times more than that. But they went to college, most of them. So there still maybe was more of a sense that was for the long term. I think Provost Carroll, you've written an article, I remember, that we read in the last year or two about the value of education, and that included some information about long-term income earning and so on. Is there any chance we could get that article and distribute it among the regents so we can read it, have it part of our elevator talk or whatever? Yeah, thank you. Regent Wheeler.
Yeah, thank you. Boy, thank you for the system collaboration you're doing on this, which I think is wonderful, and the plethora of initiatives. We want to make sure that the efforts are being, fruitful whenever we can. So my question is about how you're using data to look like likelihood to re-enroll or likelihood of a high school person to choose the University of Minnesota. So I'm just wondering what data you're able to capture, and if you can focus your efforts on those that are more highly likely to be successful. And is that difficult to come by, or what more can we do in that area?
Madam Chair Johnson and also Regent Wheeler, the pilot programs that we just talked about will give us a plethora of data to allow us to do a deeper dive and identify more what some of those variables are. Yes, we're using increasingly data-driven decision-making in the enrollment management space. At UMD, as we look at dispensing scholarships, we partnered with an external firm to really identify where the dollars would make a difference in encouraging those students across a wide range of ability students to actually come to Duluth, and we're seeing some benefits of those targeted efforts with that firm. So yes, we're using data more and more, and I think you're going to find some interesting data in the next session with Vice Provost Watkins, which is another pilot that gets at some of the re-enrollment, because they're focusing on students who have dropped out within the last 6 years. So these re-enrollment initiatives in which we're engaging are going to give us better data on those markets than we've had in the past. So we're looking forward to seeing that. I also just wanted to add one comment that fits with something that was mentioned earlier. We're partnering a lot with the community colleges and trying to build pathways for students who weren't sure what they wanted. Trade schools were more attractive. They went into college, they tried it. They're thinking about would they want to transfer to a four-year institution, and we're building some of those pathways, especially in some of the STEM and health fields, to make it easier for those students to transfer. And I believe we're seeing transfer numbers coming up, and I would think those initiatives are part of that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Just one last question here, Regent Kenyani.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Thanks, everyone, for the good discussion. I think my comment picks up actually what you brought up in the discussion we had about for specifically the young men, but also I think we've talked about other groups of, why we're not seeing certain folks enrolling. And this reminds me of a conversation we had at Retreat maybe a couple years back. And for me, the question is, first of all, why do we enroll students? Like, are we enrolling for self-preservation as an institution for enrollment's sake, or is it a means to an end? And in that case, I think it really is important to find out why they're not here and where they are elsewhere, because, if we're talking about a young man who had an opportunity in the trades and is successful pursuing that opportunity and found financial independence and leads a career, I don't know that, I don't want to bring him here per se. I mean, I'd love if they came here instead, but there's probably others that aren't quite in that situation. And if we can kind of delineate and whatnot, I obviously personally believe in our mission, or it's not just ours, just, higher education and getting the diverse experience in the liberal arts. But I think, it'd be interesting to just delineate why they're not here, and I think there's good reasons. And if there are, I don't see that as a problem. But if they're not being productive and fulfilled elsewhere, then I'd definitely much rather have them here.
Well, thank you. This has been a great discussion, and for Vice Provost McMaster and Interim Executive Vice Chancellor Pilton, I'm sorry. Thank you both so much, and let's maybe have one final round of applause for. Let's see here. Next, we have the action on proposed amendments to the Board of Regents policy, tuition and fees. And while Vice President Phillips and Interim Vice President Tonneson get settled at the presenters table, Provost Croson, would you like to start us out, please?
Thank you, Chair Johnson and members of the committee. Our next agenda item is a request for the committee to take action on proposed amendments to the Board of Regents policy, tuition and fees. As you will recall from our meeting last month, the policy has undergone the process of comprehensive review and has been combined with the student services fee policy. And I'm going to give them a minute to bring up the slide. There we go. We believe that the restructuring of these two policies, as we discussed in May, will go a long way toward achieving our Impact 2025 goal to develop a leading-edge tuition and pricing model. Joining us once again for this presentation are Calvin Phillips, Vice President for Student Affairs, and Julie Tomlinson, Interim Senior Vice President for Finance and Operations and Budget Director. With that, Madam Chair, I'd like to turn it over to our Vice Presidents.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members. We are here today to recommend approval of the proposed changes to the Regents policy on tuition and fees. As we have discussed, the essence of the policy is still good. The Board of Regents will retain its role in reviewing and approving all final tuition rates and fee levels with each annual operating budget. The recommended changes focus on updates to simplify and clarify, to remove outdated policy elements, and to reflect the way we deliver instruction now. Since your review in May, we have made only minor modifications to the structure and language in order to further clarify based on the questions we heard. The most significant recommended change to the policy on tuition and fees remains the incorporation of the governance elements of the Regents policy on student services fees to consolidate all guidance related to fees into one Regents policy. This action, combined with the development of an administrative policy on student services fees, will enable the elimination of the current student services fees policy. A bit more specificity about the changes are listed here. As we discussed last month, the recommended policy, includes incorporation of governance elements of the student services policy, updates to reporting requirements, clarification of language and terminology, and elimination of outdated elements. In its intent, the documentation brought before you for approval today is the same as the version we brought before you in May. Updates since that May version focus on clarifying structure and language in the section on tuition rate development to better describe the relationship of professional students and departmental master students as subsets of post-baccalaureate students. In addition, the section on the student services fee has also been updated to more clearly describe the groups of students who are not automatically charged the student services fee and define which of those groups may or may not opt in to paying the student services fee. A lot of technical stuff. These minor modifications since May maintain the initial recommendations and the intent of the language. They simply incorporate edits to improve clarity for readers and those charged with implementing the policy.
As we shared last month, we recommend revising the criteria for assessment of the student service fee. Currently, off-campus distance classes are excluded from the credit count to determine who is charged the fee and eligible for service. To better reflect the changing nature of course delivery and remote delivery of programs and services that have historically been campus-based, we recommend no longer excluding credits for off-campus distance classes from the credit count, used to determine the application of the fee. We recommend retaining the current practice for campuses and colleges to request exemption from paying the fee for annually approved fully online or mid-career professional credit earning programs. We would like to add an exemption for students studying abroad for a full semester as acknowledgement of their changed relationship with campus life for that time period. We would also like to retain the fee exemption for students in the Regent Tuition Benefit Program, Senior Citizens Education Program, Post-Secondary Education Option, and concurrent high school enrollment programs. The technical and non-governance level elements of the current student service fee policy were moved to a new administrative policy. As you recall, the proposed new student service fee administrative policy outlined how the fee supports the university mission. Policy also addressed the common good nature of the fee assessment. As previously mentioned, students are assessed the fee in its entirety and cannot choose to pay for those services that are of a personal interest to them. Additionally, although it has been the current practice, the policy explicitly states that student service fee cannot be used for partisan political purpose and defines such activities. The policy goes on to identify university practice each campus will utilize to administer the fee. While campus-specific procedures will vary and are individually linked in the policy establishes at a minimum all campuses will have a committee made up of a student majority, established and published in allocated in process, and criteria for decision-making that are applied in a viewpoint-neutral manner, and have a process for appeals. Excuse me. Last month, we reported on the broad informal and formal consultation that was conducted for both the tuition and fees and student service fee administrative policy with stakeholder groups across the system. We'd like to note that this consultation did include student government groups across the system. The review of these policies began over 18 months ago as part of the routine policy review process. We feel that the proposed change adequately addressed the needs of today's students and the ways in which they interact with our campuses. I will now turn the presentation back to Provost Croson.
Thank you, Vice President Phillips and Interim Senior Vice President Thomason. So with that, we're happy to open the floor for discussion, and I'll turn the committee back to Chair Johnson.
Okay, so before we turn to the discussion, is there a motion to adopt on behalf of the board the proposed amendments to the Board of Regents policies, tuition and fees, and to repeal the Board of Regents policy student services fee? So moved. Okay, second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion is passed. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Should we go ahead then?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, we'll return now here to the mission fulfillment agenda, and we'll continue with our next item, which is an update on efforts to develop a long-term strategy that leads to innovative, coordinated, and scaled system-wide distributed learning models. We welcome Vice Provost for Distributive Learning, Eric Watkins, who will join Provost Croson for the presentation. Provost Croson, would like to get us started, please.
Thank you, Chair Johnson and members of the committee. Our next presentation will update the committee on the strategies we're implementing when it comes to distributed learning and collaborations in online education. As Chair Johnson mentioned, the Impact 2025 System-Wide Strategic Plan calls for the university to establish innovative, coordinated, and scaled system-wide distributed learning models to increase access and meet workforce needs. As a reminder, we are not trying to compete in the already crowded space of offering a comprehensive selection of fully online undergraduate degrees. There are many other providers in that space. Our strategy instead is targeted We seek to identify educational offerings, degrees, or certificates that have unmet demand and relatively few suppliers. We seek educational offerings that can make a difference in our state and nationally, and especially where we can leverage the expertise on multiple campuses to serve new markets, not to cannibalize our existing programs. Joining us once again is Dr. Eric Watkins, professor in the Department of Horticulture Sciences and vice provost for the Office of Distributed Learning, and I welcome him to provide the presentation.
Thank you, Professor Grossen. Chair Johnson, committee members, thank you for having me today. The Office of Distributed Learning provides leadership for the development of online and hybrid educational programs throughout the University of Minnesota system. Our office leverages the strengths of the university's 5-campus system to help academic units launch and grow online programs. Some of these programs are intentionally system-wide, others are based in a single unit but benefit from the online support services that we can provide, such as market research and student recruitment. Finally, we have launched a system-wide pilot to help returning learners obtain their degrees. The 5 campuses that make up our university system provide important opportunities for students throughout the state and beyond. Online education now allows us to consider how we can build programs that leverage the entire University of Minnesota system. The Office of Distributed Learning is currently involved in a number of efforts that aim toward creating educational pathways that connect students with faculty expertise across the system. There's a growing availability of online courses and programs within the system. The table on this slide shows the number of students taking courses away from their home campus, and most often then, these are fully online courses. While these numbers are increasing, there's a lot of potential to provide more of these opportunities for our students. Fully online minors allow students to learn from experts on other campuses while earning an additional academic credential. Several of our campuses now have online summer courses. Communicating this opportunity to our students will help them graduate on time. Our office is also working to connect programs from multiple campuses to explore mutually beneficial collaborations. Our office manages the university's collaboration with Coursera, an online learning platform that offers a wide range of short-form courses, industry certificates, and online degrees. We currently offer 68 courses developed by the University of Minnesota faculty. These courses are available to well over 110 million Coursera users throughout the world. Another recent focus of distributed learning at the university has been the Next Gen programs. While our office isn't directly involved in all of these programs, we do help convene those working on these programs so that we can share successes and discuss new opportunities. Since the launch of Next Gen Med, these career-connected and accelerated programs have been working to bring new approaches to undergraduate education in Minnesota. Those of you on the audit committee are aware that the original Next Gen platform is no longer being used. However, the academic technologists, faculty, staff, and administrators are working to leverage other academic technology tools that can function similarly and better integrate with our other systems, thereby increasing their likelihood of broader impact on educational outcomes. Faculty and staff at Crookston will relaunch Next Gen Ag in the fall and are currently developing Next Gen Badge. The most recent of these programs is Next Gen Teach. I want to focus on this program because it spans 4 of the system's campuses. Next Gen Teach is currently focused on coordinating efforts across the university system that'll remove barriers, create more accessible pathways, and hence expand the number of licensed special education teachers in the state. A team in the College of Education and Human Development on the Twin Cities campus is working diligently and quickly with teacher training programs in Duluth, where there's an existing special education program, Morris and Crookston, to identify opportunities to work together to help solve this critical state need. Next Gen Teach will have pathways at both the undergraduate and graduate levels. The Next Gen Teach team has already received state funding to be part of an apprenticeship residency design academy for the upcoming academic year. The team is also seeking opportunities for external funding at both the state and local level to help reduce the financial cost of these programs to students. This level of collaboration and cooperation across the system can be a model for other programs. The next area my office is working on is developing ways to better support the creation of new online and hybrid programs throughout the 5-campus system. For well over a decade, many colleges and universities have developed new online programs with the help of private companies. These online program managers, or OPMs, can provide a range of services to help build, launch, and grow educational programs. For the most part, these private companies take on the financial risk of these efforts, spending hundreds of thousands of dollars for marketing, recruitment, and any number of other necessary services. In return, the OPM receives a portion of tuition. At one time, this tuition share rate was very high, well north of 50%. However, market pressures have brought this number much lower today. Many online programs at institutions throughout the country wouldn't exist without this model. Recently, however, this model has come under pressure from both the U.S. Department of Education and even the Minnesota State Legislature, which recently passed into law restrictions on tuition share agreements for the Minnesota State University system. We are attentive to these concerns. Even without these external pressures, it would benefit the university to maximize the use of internal resources to build and scale educational programs. The university has the necessary expertise and resources to do this. However, there is a need for coordination of these activities and a process that carefully considers when and where these new programs fit the mission of the university. The Office of Distributed Learning has recently begun to coordinate a new online and hybrid program development. At this stage, most of our efforts involve the discussion of new program ideas with academic units and providing market research data. We are now in the process of developing internal financial models and have finalized a number of contracts with external vendors that can assist with more specialized functions, such as market research and components of large marketing spends. These vendors will be available to use for all on a fee-for-service basis, thereby avoiding any future regulatory challenges. Working together with the greater Minnesota campuses, the Twin Cities colleges, and a number of central support units, we will be able to build new programs that meet the needs of the state. Finally, I want to give an update on some exciting work we have been leading in the area of degree completion. At my update last June, I talked about the some credit, no credential population, and it's been mentioned earlier today. And I proposed that the University of Minnesota is well situated to help this group of learners. In Minnesota, for every enrolled undergraduate student, there are 2.5 students who have some credits but do not yet have a college credential. Each year at the University of Minnesota, hundreds of students stop out of their academic programs for any number of reasons, many of whom do not return to complete their program. Helping these students finish their journey toward an undergraduate degree can both increase system enrollments and lead to positive outcomes for these Minnesotans. National conversations have suggested that this population would benefit from policy and process flexibility beyond which are standard at larger research institutions like the university. We are particularly interested in individuals who started college more than 6 years ago and then stopped out. These students who stopped out more recently and who can therefore graduate within 6 years of initial enrollment are being served by the re-enrollment process that you heard from in the last presentation from Vice Provost McMaster. So to both meet the needs of these students and learn about how we can better serve the some credit, no credential population, we have launched a pilot program we are calling Restart Your Degree. We have identified majors across the system that had high numbers of students stop out between 2014 and 2019 and are inviting them back to the university. We will support this student cohort with additional advising and more flexible ways to navigate the University of Minnesota. A subset of students who stopped out from the university from 2014 to 2019 will be invited back to one of the programs listed here. The list of programs was intentional and based on those majors that have historically had high levels of stopped out students, and also those majors that we think provide the flexibility desired by many of these returning students. While we expect many students who stopped out will prefer online options, this is not just a program for students who want to learn online. We also hope to see a number of students return to complete degrees in residential programs throughout the system. Programs that have a fully online pathway to degree are shown in maroon. This pilot involves units throughout the system. Every campus is represented in this list. Administrative staff throughout the university are making sure that we clearly communicate to these students about financial aid opportunities and the policy and process changes we are piloting over the next 5 years. The College of Continuing and Professional Studies has been a great partner in helping build communication channels to these students and enrollment management support. And staff in the College of Food, Agricultural, and Natural Resource Sciences are serving important advising roles to help students take full advantage of the breadth of the educational experiences the system has to offer. This has been an exciting year in the Office of Distributed Learning. My team has been able to move distributed learning in a positive direction, identifying new opportunities for system-wide efforts such as NextGen Teach. leveraging existing online curricula and launching new initiatives that help students access the excellent education that is provided by our 5 campuses. In the next year, we will continue to meet with faculty and staff throughout the system, helping identify new opportunities and build connections that can help launch new collaborations. We have already had high interest in the support services we can provide for new online and hybrid programs and look forward to launching new programs in the coming year. Finally, the degree completion pilot I described will begin to serve students who previously left the university without a degree. The things we learn from this pilot can help guide longer-term policy and process changes throughout the system. As we move to a time of discussion, I welcome any input you have on how the university can best serve these students through distributed learning. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Vice Provost Watson. Regents, let's turn to discussion. Any questions or comments? Quick question. Regent
And
Mayron.
I may have not heard this correctly. At one point, I thought you said we stopped using Next Gen. Did I misunderstand? But then there's references to Next Gen Ag and Next Gen this and Next Gen that. So maybe I misheard what it is we stopped using and how it relates to what it is we are using.
Chair Johnson, Regent Mayron. Yeah, so there's we're kind of separating 2 different things here. What I refer to as the Next Gen platform, so the actual technology platform, that is, as the audit committee knows, that's what we're stop using. The Next Gen programs will continue, and we have other tools to sort of replace some of the desired functionality that was sought from the Google platform. So the Next Gen programs can continue. We can continue to innovate and look for even better solutions on the technology side.
Thank you.
Thank you. Regent Verhalen.
Thank you. And this presentation is helpful, just understanding kind of the breadth of the various depths that we have across the university in some of these creative ways. One question that caught me on this is how can we reach the some credit, no degree student pool? And thinking through the relationships that different colleges here on the Twin Cities campus, different programs, different campuses and the colleges within some of those campuses have with employers, their industry partners, and finding ways to communicate this type of a program to those employers who can then, and industry groups who can then push that out to their own stakeholders might be a low-cost way to get some of the word out about this, because there are some people who've maybe they got their 2-year degree and want to finish something. Maybe they started a 4-year program, got an amazing opportunity to just go to work instead of finishing their degree, but would still like to finish it for some reason. So that was one area that just struck me as I looked at this of, is that something that we can look at leveraging with those relationships?
Yes.
Chairman, Chair Johnson, Regent Verhalen, I love that idea, sort of a B2B model as well as a B2C model. I'll add that when I was a dean in Texas, we had an arrangement with BNSF, the train company, where we took their folks who were engineers, I don't mean engineers, I mean choo-choo train engineer, right? And gave them kind of delivered education in an executive education kind of format on the weekends and the evenings to bring them to kind of undergrad degrees in operations, which enabled them to move into that kind of track at the company. So whether it's a custom program for a company or just as you suggested, reaching that audience, I think that's a great idea.
Thank you. Regent Gully.
Thank you so much, Vice Chair, and thank you so much for the presentation. I was wondering, it's great that we have this data on the programs where people are most likely to stall out. One, do we have a strong sense of why people are more likely to stall out in those programs than, say, other programs, or what are, do they follow sort of the common reasons that people end up stopping out? And then I had another question, but I'll let you answer that one first so I can try to remember what it was.
Chair Johnson and Regent Gully, that's a good question. So a lot of the reasons are what you might expect, and I think they're sort of similar among programs. The reason, really, one of the reasons these programs rank high in stopouts is because they have a lot of students. So it's not necessarily a different percentage. Now, I don't have the exact analysis on that, but we see there's certain sort of popular high enrollment majors are going to have a greater number of stopouts. And Office of Undergrad Education, ask those questions when students stop out. One thing we're asking as we invite students back is, especially those who choose to come back, is why did you choose to come back? What is that thing that we're offering that pulls you back in? So we're really interested in that question as well. what is the thing we can help you with that can get you back into the program?
Thank you so much. My second question was, is there more that we can do to work with employers to bring back, folks who have stalled out? I mean, is there more that we can do to make it easier for people who have, say, like an employment education benefit to come back, or more that we can do to work directly with employers who have an educational benefit to just like streamline the process for people to come back? Or I don't know, just I'm thinking about ways that we could work more with organizations to bring people back.
Chair Johnson, Regent Gully, that's a great point. And actually, some of the Next Gen programs have done this, sort of targeted those kind of learners that are working in certain industries. There's also, I think, as part of this re-enrollment effort and this degree completion effort, communicating effectively all the financial aid possible, and one of those things would be some of the financial aid available through companies. Another thing that's available at some of our campuses, credit for prior learning, that can often be an important factor for students who might be interested in re-enrolling. And some of the things that Provost Croson talked about earlier in terms of working with businesses, I think are really important to help identify those really good opportunities where the need of the employees of a particular business really fit well with what we do at the university.
Can I just ask one follow-up? Or part of the reason that I'm thinking about this is I remember meeting with someone with one of the healthcare directors at the U last year and finding out that they had a lot of financial aid scholarship money available for folks, but they weren't getting enough applicants. And my husband is the president of the healthcare union, and I was like, oh, for goodness sakes, he has thousands of members who might be interested in taking advantage of this and getting into a degree program to advance their healthcare career if they knew that there was scholarship money available to do that. So I'm wondering if we could even go beyond just like professional organizations or hospitals or clinics or whatever in healthcare and reach out to unions and other professional partners that could help get the word out, especially when there's, available funding and these are jobs that we desperately need in the state.
Yeah, Chair Johnson, Regent Gully, that's a great point and question. I think one of the ways that we think about this as doing it maybe in a new way is program level marketing. So a lot of these programs that we're in conversation with about building or scaling online or hybrid programs, one thing that is really important these days would be program level marketing, especially in this online space. And we don't do a lot of it at the university. We've convened a community of practice for those who work in that space. And there's not a lot of people in the system, but that's one of the things our online program support services can do is provide those connections to the marketing vendors that can really help us target those opportunities depending on the program. I mean, there's lots of ways to market, and that's an important one, is thinking about what are the local opportunities, and that kind of consulting marketing function can really help do that well.
So it just kind of reminds me when I was in college as a chemistry major in the Twin Cities, I know that or corporations like 3M provided sponsorship for non-traditional students. They came there, they took classes with us, they mentored them, they worked there, provided some funding, and it was really a very positive thing. I don't know if some of that kind of industry stuff is still going on. Regent Tad Johnson.
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation. I'm just wondering if this may be the future of a lot of things. I went out and talked to Indian tribes for 2 years to see what kind of program they wanted created for their managers, and they wanted it online. I was in my early 50s. I thought, I don't want to learn how to do a course online. Teaching online I found to be very pleasant and was a very creative way of doing it. But looking around at, like, there's a partnership between Starbucks and Arizona State University where they've graduated tens of thousands of people. Just looking quickly online, it looks like Indiana University has a whole bunch of graduate and undergraduate courses that they offer online. I'm just wondering if this is a potential wave of the future, and with all the industry we have in the Twin Cities, whether it's the medical device industry or there's a whole bunch of workers inside, and then there's a whole bunch of corporate offices here that are throughout the country. I'm just wondering, this idea of partnering with industry, I think, is a potential good way to go in the future.
Chair Johnson, Regent Johnson. Yeah, so a lot of what you're referring to can also sort of refers to the need for professional graduate programs in an online space, and that's really an important trend, and something our office can help assess through market research. Where are those opportunities, or where are there existing professional master's programs? The examples you gave, maybe at Duluth, like MTrees and MTech. Where are those examples where the market research suggests having them in person only could be a problem, 5-6 years from now? And then how can we help have those conversations and appropriately move those courses online? Your University of Minnesota has a very important in-person experience, important residential experience for students. But what are those opportunities that make sense given where the learners are for that program, right? And I think that's what you're talking about. There's certain things where the students just can't get here, right? Or they're working and they have families and they just can't get here. And we want to look for those opportunities where it makes sense, given our mission, for us to be the ones that are developing those programs.
Regent Kenyanya.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Vice Provost Watkins. Appreciate the presentation, the conversation, everyone. I'm curious how we pace ourselves and specifically to do some evaluation, right? And just understand how we're doing and the effectiveness. I think we know there's lots of bad online education out there. I mean, just lots of it, right? Because it's easy to do as in just put the content out there. It's not so easy to do well, right? And certainly I wouldn't put the university in that category. We're not, what do they call it, MOOCs? We're not offering MOOCs, but there's still there's work to do. We're not just lifting and shifting our course content online. I mean, I think we're all pretty proud of how we weathered the pandemic, but I think we also heard from some students where it was a rough transition if you're not thoughtful about how you're delivering this specific instruction in a different format. And that's why we have your office and the people who are actually thinking about the pedagogical considerations, right? So can you talk about that and how we can kind of just be measured also and strategic as we move that way?
Chair Johnson and Regent Kenyanya. Yes, this is an important consideration, right? I've talked a lot about doing market research and making sure the program will fly financially, and it fills gaps, things like that. But along with that, and I didn't talk a lot about this, is attention to quality. And that's one thing, sort of doing this internally versus doing everything externally, where we really have an advantage. I think we have really good central support units and amongst the colleges to help on this question of quality, making sure the educational programs we're delivering really meet the standards that we expect. Center for Educational Innovation, Academic Technology Support Services, and OIT. These are both units that pay a lot of attention to that. So part of our role is coordinating that as well for new units. So it's once the decision is made that this is a great opportunity, it's also bringing together those other units to help make sure that it goes well. Not only just building it and launching it, but then also checking in on it, making sure that there's continual quality checks as well.
And if I may.
Oh, yes, please.
And if I may chime in, last meeting before, I gave a pretty comprehensive update about our HLC accreditation. That accreditation includes all our modalities, so it includes all of our online degrees as well. So not only are there reputational issues for launching a low-quality program, there are accreditation issues, which is why we're committed to not doing that.
Brief comment, not even a follow-up. I would just say appreciate that, both those comments, and would comment that hopefully we get feedback from the students directly as well, and use that for continuous improvement.
Thank you. Chair Regent may run.
Yes, Regent.
It's just reflex.
I'm thinking about there are so many advantages with the distributed learning and online learning, and I understand that. But it seems to me and that one of the things it can't offer is the student experience that somebody would have if they're here in person in a residential hall or not, but have other individuals that they're interacting in. And I'm thinking that when I think big picture about, for example, what drives donors to give money to the university, it's often, which I think are going to be relying more and more on as a potential revenue source. So much of that is driven by the student experience here at the university in person and relating to other individuals. In this modality of distributed learning, is there any way to address the student experience piece of it, given by its very nature, it's all online? Or is that something you just say, no, that's not what it's going to do?
Chair Johnson and Regent Mayron. That is something we think about. And I think there are, as time's gone on, especially during the pandemic, there's more and more people thinking about that. Like, what are some good solutions? Now, you can't recreate live in a dorm, all the things you've talked about, but what are the things we can do to help that student experience? And, it's sort of one of the things to think about is in some situations that student just can't get here and do that experience. So what can we do in terms of I think the education side, we can do really good work. And what can we do on the experience side to make it as high quality as possible? I think there were a lot of efforts in just building community online during the pandemic because there was concerns about student mental health and so forth. So some of the things that were learned during that time are starting to be rolled out on a bigger basis when you kind of listen to the national conversation about online programs. So it's something we are watching for and listening to, and it's definitely a conversation at other universities.
And if I might chime in on that as well, I think that a lot of the social value from the in-person education has to do with the peer-to-peer interactions. Mm-hmm. It's of course about your relationship with your faculty member, but it's also about your relationship with each other. And I think one of the great things about the Next Gen program that Chancellor Carroll launched and others is that they include those kinds of peer-to-peer interactions. Now, they may be virtual, right? They're chat rooms, they're video exchanges, they're study groups, other kinds of things. But And for this next generation, that might be what they need, right? It's another question. But I think the more we can incorporate those peer-to-peer interactions, the more affinity the students who graduate from an online program will feel toward the institution.
Okay, thank you, Vice Provost Watson. Great presentation on distributive learning and our discussion as well. So, all right, ready?
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to move on to our fourth and final regular item here, which will be an overview of the university libraries. And while Dean Lisa German gets settled here at the presentation table, Provost Croson, please share a few opening remarks.
Thank you, Chair Johnson and members of the committee. Our next presentation is an overview of something the board has not addressed in anyone's recent memory, which is the university libraries. And joining us this afternoon is Lisa German, our university librarian and dean of the libraries. As you'll hear, the libraries are central to everything that we do, to teaching, to research, to outreach and service. The libraries serve all the colleges and all the campuses and all the students and all the faculty and all the citizens of the state of Minnesota. And Dean German is an excellent leader for our libraries. She is forward-thinking and innovative, and as you'll hear, embraces change in the library world. I believe so strongly in their mission and how they accomplish it that every year when I make my charitable donation to the university, my money goes to the libraries. And I get a very nice thank you note from Dean. So with that, I'd like to turn the presentation over to Dean German to tell you a little about the libraries and the amazing work they do.
Well, thank you so much, Provost Croson, Chair Johnson, and members of the Mission Fulfillment Committee. Thank you for inviting me to talk about the university libraries, for which I am very proud to be the university librarian and dean. But most importantly, I'm proud of the way the entire library staff advances the mission of the university. I'll start by giving an overview of who we are, how we embrace and leverage technology to further student success, how we help drive research and discovery at the university, and finally, I'll talk about some of our important collaborations and partnerships. On this slide, you can see the size of our staff. the total number of physical volumes we hold, and that we're ranked number 10 in all public academic libraries by the Association for Research Libraries. Although we have 7.6 million volumes, the vast majority of our purchases are for online materials. For example, we have 965 online databases, 1.6 million ebooks. We also have Libby now. And over 100,000 digitized items in our institutional repository, which we call the University Digital Conservancy. However, there are some disciplines for which print materials are crucial to their students and faculty. Our librarians carefully curate these print and electronic collections. These resources are heavily used by the University of Minnesota community and by others throughout Minnesota and around the world. In FY23, the university libraries facilitated 8.9 million database searches, 3.7 million article downloads, nearly 500,000 views of our subject and course guides, and more than 100,000 views of our online tutorials. The University Libraries is an active hub for student engagement, and I know some of you were in the Health Sciences Library, so you had the opportunity to engage. And our spaces have evolved to meet the needs of today's students. Our goals are to meet students where they are. So whether they need a quiet place to study or a technology-rich environment, we're there for them. Our makerspaces and virtual reality studio are heavily used by our university community and beyond. In the health sciences makerspace, our staff are helping to train tomorrow's health practitioners. Examples include working with occupational therapy students on uses for 3D printing in their profession, and using virtual reality to help medical students understand Alzheimer's disease and dementia from future patients' perspectives. We have fully equipped video recording studios in 4 of our libraries, which are used by both faculty, staff, and students to practice presentations, to conduct interviews, record lectures, and complete course assignments. The former reference room in Wilson Library was reimagined as the Wilson Research Collaboration Studio and is used for collaborative work and group study as a home for hosting meetings, such as the pre-conference for the Library Publishing Forum. Through our partnership with the Holmes Center for Entrepreneurship at the Carlson School, the staff in the Toaster Innovation Hub enable students to develop prototypes and pilot programs. In the Toaster, all students are able to have open access to a makerspace, connect and collaborate with fellow students, faculty, and mentors, find resources to launch a new project, service or vision, and to hold group meetings, workshops, and events. And I should say that the Toaster is in the basement of Walter Library. Recognizing the importance of mental health to student success, we've developed wellness spaces in Wilson, Walter, and the Health Sciences Libraries. These spaces are open to all and were developed based upon student requests. In collaboration with Boynton Health, Wilson Library regularly, I had to put a dog picture in here, hosts pause programs, which gives students an opportunity to de-stress by interacting with registered therapy animals and have access to a licensed clinical social worker. The Boynton Health West Bank Clinic offers mental health care services to students in its 4th floor office in Wilson Library. Our archives and special collections are an amazing array of material that support interdisciplinary research. The collection is the largest in the Big Ten and one of the largest among universities throughout the U.S. A few notable collections include the Tretter Collection in LGBTQ studies, the James Ford Bell Library, home to the 1602 map created by Matteo Michi, and the Curlin Collection of Children's Literature. Much of our fundraising efforts are focused in this area, and I can say that this year we were able to endow our children's collection curator, and we really blew past our fundraising goals. I've talked a fair amount about how we've transformed our spaces, and now I'd like to focus on the work of our librarians and staff in advancing student success, research, outreach for the University of Minnesota. This is the heart of what we do in the libraries, along with our expertise in managing and making accessible our world-class collection. We contribute to student success in many ways, including through easy and affordable access to course materials. Our staff work closely with instructors, identifying course materials we already own and purchasing other items as needed. These materials are then embedded into Canvas, the university's learning management system, providing students with easy access. In FY23 alone, the libraries embedded books, articles, and streaming media in 3,346 course sections. These efforts by our staff resulted in a potential overall savings for students of $6.5 million because they didn't need to buy expensive textbooks. We directly partner with faculty in providing lessons that promote information literacy. Our staff engaged in 519 classes, teaching almost 12,000 students, from first-year freshmen to PhD students. And for over 10 years, the library has offered a peer research consultant program. These are undergraduate students who are trained by our staff to help other students with their research papers and assignments, while also guiding interested students to faculty so that they can work on impactful research projects. Last year, these peer tutors helped more than 4,000 students. The libraries is a crucial partner in moving the university's research enterprise forward in all disciplines. Our staff provide expert guidance on research data management, offer data curation services, advise on open access publishing options, negotiate with vendors to waive or reduce article processing charges for the University of Minnesota authors, and maintain world-class collections that enable research. This graphic depicts how our staff provide critical support throughout the entire research lifecycle, including reviewing and advising on data management plans. Our research librarians work with researchers to curate their data for publication, whether that's through the data repository for the University of Minnesota, as we fondly call DRUM, or a third-party repository. To better facilitate this growing research need, we're home to the Data Curation Network, a 19-member organization that advances open research by making data more ethical, reusable, and understandable. And this, we just hosted the entire cohort from 19 schools here, and this is a picture of them. They are not all our staff here at the University of Minnesota. Our staff are leading the university towards open scholarship and open science as a standard practice. In addition to advising researchers on open access publishing options, the libraries negotiate agreements with publishers to reduce or waive article processing charges. As part of a multi-year agreement between the Big Ten Academic Alliance and the publisher Wiley, these charges are waived for lead authors on the Twin Cities, Rochester, Duluth, and Morris campuses. Our staff also enable open access publishing of journals and monographs through our publishing program. Minitex is an information and resource sharing program the University of Minnesota Libraries and the Office of Higher Education in Minnesota. It was founded more than 50 years ago as a means for sharing the library resources of our university with the rest of the state. The Minitex mission is to strengthen libraries, cultural institutions, and communities it serves. So Minitex accomplishes this through several key services. Minitex delivers books and materials to users throughout Minnesota, making 734,000 deliveries in FY23 alone. Minnesota is a state of readers. The eLibrary Minnesota is a core collection of online databases that are available to all Minnesotans. Provides 24/7 online research help through our reference service. And through its cooperative purchasing program, Minitex saved Minnesota libraries $4.1 million through cooperative purchasing. Last year, Minitex added 2 healthcare databases to expand access to health information to Minnesotans and to provide training materials for future healthcare workers. And those were 2 nursing databases. Collaboration among our campus libraries is strong. I meet with the directors of the greater Minnesota campuses each week, and we have been for the last 4 years, where we share best practices and support one another. We share the library system, and we try to license as many resources as we can for all campuses. For example, over 75% of the e-journals and databases that Crookston, Morris, and Duluth have access to are provided through the Twin Cities Library or via Minitex at either freely or a reduced cost. Our Health Sciences Library supports health sciences schools and programs housed on the Twin Cities, Rochester, and Duluth campuses. When the medical school opens its Center Care Regional Campus in St. Cloud, we will support that program as well. Staff from Minitex and the Health Sciences Libraries are building on the 2023 legislative success by working to expand statewide access to health information through the proposed Minnesota Electronic Health Library. We also have many partnerships with K through 12 and other programs. A few examples here include partnering with the Minnesota Historical Society to help more than 1,000 middle school and high school students each year to support their History Day projects. To collaborate with the Perry Initiative to support Twin Cities high school girls who are planning to become orthopedic surgeons. Sponsoring a 3-month fellowship connecting K through 12 teachers with our MAP library. And hosting and teaching over 300 Minnesota College in the Schools high school students about the role of primary sources in historical research. And it was wonderful to have them in both Wilson Health Sciences and Anderson Library this year. Finally, the Big Ten Academic Alliance libraries are working together to develop a networked approach to managing our material as a single collection. The Big Collection, as it's called, would constitute the 3rd largest library collection in the world, after the Library of Congress and the British Library. And as an example of how this collaboration already benefits the University of Minnesota, in FY23, 65% of all interlibrary loan requests, I know you love interlibrary loan, Regent Pignagna, by the University of Minnesota users were filled by Big Ten libraries. So I just want to say thank you all. It was a pleasure talking with you, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have about the libraries.
Thank you, Dean German, for that excellent presentation on university libraries. I think we already have a comment for discussion. Representative Yang.
Thank you, Chair Johnson, and thank you so much, Dean German. And I have a comment and a quick question. The comment is just a huge thank you for all the work that you do. As a medical school student, I have quite literally used every single resource that you just pointed out. I was like, yep, I know what that is. Yep, I know what that is. Just to give a few examples, just 2 weeks ago, I was trying to read through 100 research papers, some of which the Twin Cities campus does not have directly in our system. And I just clicked a button, and within 1 business day, literally all of the papers that I needed were sent to my inbox. And it was super easy easy, super quick, and that was amazing. When I took OChem in undergrad, I basically lived in the toaster. It's an incredible space, and just a couple weeks ago during our neuroblock, I was in the VR studio trying to look at dendrites and trying to, figure out, all that stuff, and it was a super, super cool resource to be able to have, and just wanted to say thank you so much for, having all of that there as resources for us. So transitioning into my question, I was trying to share all these wonderful experiences with my friends who are also, working on research projects and things like that. And they were really unaware of the resources that we have as a university. And so I wanted to ask if you could talk more about the strategies that we use to advertise these resources to our current students. And yeah.
Regent Johnson, Chair Johnson, Regent Yang, thank you so much. Thank you, first of all, so much for your comments. And I have to say, this is some of our number one challenge is making sure all students know what fabulous resources we have. So one of the things we try to do is each semester, 2 or 3 times in each semester, we send out messages directly to students. We have the ability to do that. And we have we keep track of the click-through rate so we know if they're opening them or not. And it's about 70% for undergrads. So that's really fabulous, I think, statistics-wise. But still, there's more and more to do. So we participate in New Student Week. So we're out on the mall with our colleagues. We have an Instagram feed that we have a student advisory board, and oftentimes our student advisory board will take over the Instagram feed. We just won an award for one of our videos. One of our librarians looks a lot like Wednesday Addams, and we won an award at the Association for Research Libraries for best performance. So I got to give her Oscar yesterday. So what I'm trying to say is there's more we can always do in this area. I think some of our librarians and staff are our best ambassadors, but you're right. It is a real challenge getting not just getting the word out there of all the different kinds of things we can do. And that said, we have more than 1 million visitors in our spaces every year. But it's still a challenge for sure. Thank you.
I have 3.
I just have a follow-up
Okay.
to Flora's question, and that is, as part of orientation when a new student comes in, whether as a freshman or a transfer student or whatever, is that included within giving them the kind of 101 on the library system and the extent of the resources that are available to them?
Thank you very much, Regent Mayron, Chair Johnson. Yes, probably not one-on-one since we get 7,000 students in each semester. But one of the ways we do reach a huge number of students is we have close to 12 librarians who work with Writing 1301, which is the beginning writing course for freshmen, and they work with the faculty to plan assignments and to help them with their research paper, help them develop their topic, help them figure out what a research question is, all those kinds of things. So we're able to reach a lot of students through that way. We're also involved with New Student Week and New Student Orientation. And I do believe that I can say that's probably true of all campuses as well.
Okay. Thank you. We have 3 additional questions. So Regent Davenport.
Thank you, Chair Johnson, and thank you, Dean German. I have a comment, if you indulge me for a second, and then my question. And my father was Dean of Learning Resources and Innovative Programs. So I applaud the innovation that really does come out of learning resources, libraries, and that was, of course, in the 60s, 70s, early 80s. So, I mean, there was a lot going on there. My question is related. So today, earlier, we passed the budget for the next year. And I've always been concerned about the rising costs of especially these databases, online resources, and I'm wondering, has that leveled off over the last 10, 20 years? And I applaud the partnerships that you have. Example, the Big Ten. Is that helping to mitigate that, or are you every year looking at those huge increases, and how do you manage that?
Let me chime in first before Dean German responds. Chair Johnson, Regent Davenport, she has some excellent negotiators on her staff. I will say, maybe you want to talk a little more about that.
Sure. Yes, I will give a big shout out to our director of collections because she is ruthless in terms of
You have to be, I think.
So yes, Chair Johnson, Regent Davenport, it is a challenge. At one university where I worked, the CFO said that the library resource inflation rivals healthcare inflation, and it's really it can be really very much the same. We've been able, the more we can do together, the more we can collaborate, oftentimes the lower the cost. So our inflation figures have been running anywhere from about, I'm going to say, under 4% for the last 3 years. And that's really good. That's really due to our collections coordinators' negotiating skills and the fact that we're able to work collaboratively with the Big Ten like we did with Wiley, and that keeps costs down too. But every year there is an increase, and I think one of the reasons that we are so supportive of open science, open scholarship, is because that will help mitigate some of those costs.
Well, I feel for you. Thank you.
Okay, well, Regent Kenyanya and then Regent Turner.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Dean German. Really appreciate the presentation. I don't know that anyone rivals a librarian's commitment to help a student. And I think Student Representative Yang, really captured this well. I'd be lying if I said I lived in the library, but the point of engagements you have are so memorable. You pointed out when I talk about interlibrary loan all the time, I was getting my textbooks from University of Arkansas for free, which I thought was the coolest thing ever. This might not impress some of you all, but I discovered microfiche in the UMD library. And I was like, what is this thing? It was super cool. And there's, you didn't even talk about, all the stuff you do. I know Matt Rosendahl and his team. They're looking to see if they can compile all the needed text for a class and eliminate the book, right? And they're working one-on-one with faculty. So the list goes on, and it's definitely appreciated. And yeah, how we can continue to get that word out. And I think when students have that one interaction, and they're working on a paper and they ask a librarian and they see how committed they are to helping them dig, it definitely is lasting. And it's evolving. I thought, you talked about VR and all the other labs. I spend a lot of time in the media hub, which is housed in the library at UMD. I think there was a question coming here, and I can't find. I can't quite find the question. But no, definitely. I guess I'm curious how students are adopting some of the changes. Right, you talked about those new labs and forms you have, and I imagine even the library's format has to change a bit. Once upon a time, people used to come and look for computers. I think now they just want monitors to plug in their own, because everyone kind of has their own. Can you talk a bit about just that evolution?
Sure. Thank you, Regent Johnson, Chair Johnson, Regent Kenyanya. One of the ways in which you're absolutely right about the ways in which libraries have evolved. And, you know, it used to be that we had stacks and stacks and stacks of books, and that our libraries were kind of de-emphasized people and really emphasized collections. And collections are still crucial. They are crucial to research, but the way they're delivered now is so different. And so we've noticed that we've been able to reduce the number of computers that we have in our libraries. We still have some because we're a repository library for government documents, and so we need to make sure that the public is able to get to those kinds of documents. And so we do have some computers in the library that the public can use as well. But we have a smaller number than we used to because we just don't need as many anymore. But we also didn't have, you know, when I started and I became a librarian, it's been 30 years this year, you know, we had microfiche. Well, we still have microfiche. Fun fact, when students come in for History Day, they are so excited about the microfiche, and parents are like, "Oh, I can show you how to use that." So it's pretty amazing. But yeah, I think librarians have always been. We've always changed with the times. We've evolved, but that commitment, like you were saying to students, that's unwavering. And that is true of every single person in my library, whether they are a librarian who has her PhD in music, or whether you are working at one of the desks in Wilson Library.
I'll just follow up comment. Thank you. And I'll also add that I think when you're impacted by a library, it lasts beyond. And I'm forgetting which region I was talking to the other day, but we were talking about how I was traveling for work, and when we left the client office and I needed a place to work, I was in Cincinnati. I'd just go to University of Cincinnati Library. And I was telling a friend that, and they're like, "Is it because you're a regent you can go there?" I'm like, "No, it's a public university library. I know I can just walk in and my eduroam will connect and I'll find a good place to be productive." So yeah, thank you.
Thanks for that testimonial. Regent Turner.
Thank you, Chair Johnson. By the way, my reference is still the little ticker cards and pulling out the little drawer and all that, so it's probably in some museum now. But anyway, my question is, I've been around the health science library, and we've been in and out of the difference, and all the areas are being repurposed, kind of, for want of a better word. Is that same transition happening on Nemora's campus, the Crookston campus, et cetera? I can't remember which one that I went to, that when we walked into the library area, there seemed to be a lot of open space that, well, I'm going to leave it at that. Are there all of our libraries being repurposed into these fun, cool stuff that we have here on the Twin City campus? Or are we just consolidating everything that everyone will just automatically get everything from the Twin City campus, thus making our libraries irrelevant on the other campuses? I would hate to see that.
So I'm going to thank you for that question, Chair Johnson, Regent Turner. I have been to all the campus libraries, so I have seen the different spaces. Duluth has a stunningly beautiful library with a Dale Chihuly sculpture hanging from the front, which is amazing. And they have done, I think, a lot with their space, and it's open, but there's also places to study. I think there's a classroom in there for librarians to teach. At Crookston and Morris, the libraries are smaller, and the budgets for those libraries come from the campuses. So, you know, it sort of, so goes the campus, so goes the library, I would say. But yet, I can't speak to their spaces, but I can speak to the people because I know all the people in those libraries. And they do a whole lot with what they have. And we work collaboratively together whenever we can to deliver services. And so those librarians at Morris, they're delivering important services to the Morris campus. And there are things that we can help with from here. But as Regent Kenyanya was saying, it's that personal interaction sometimes that's so important. And I can tell you that Angie at Morris and her staff, or Carrie at Crookston, or Matt up at Duluth, they are all delivering on the mission of those campuses as well.
As a follow, it would be really cool if it could, some of that technological stuff could be loaned to them once in a while, that they could experience. You know, the little eyeglasses that you do, the whatever.
Thank you for that.
You know, that would be cool if it could get loaned to some of the other campuses once in a while. Interim President Ettinger.
Yeah, just very quickly. So I've had the privilege of meeting with a lot of the Big Ten chancellors and presidents during the course of the year. And of course, this was a year of expansion with new universities coming on board. And of course, athletics drives a lot of things. But there are also UCLA, USC, Oregon, and Washington presidents specifically talked about the academic alliance that Rachel chairs, but the library collaboration. They are very excited about the notion of being the third largest library on a collective basis and being able to join that. So I just wanted to share that.
Thank you.
That's great.
Interim President Ettinger. Thank you.
That is good. Dean German, thank you for such a great presentation and for all the good work that you do in the library here.
Thank you so much.
Now, we're going to the last item on our agenda. Very quick. Consent report. And Provost Croson, will you please provide a brief overview of the items in our discussion?
Thank you, Chair Johnson and members of the committee. I'm pleased to present the consent report today for your consideration, which includes our usual academic program reviews. As is typical, the report includes new academic programs that have requested changes, and plans that are to be discontinued. I'd especially like to draw your attention to the restructuring of the Duluth campus Bachelor of Arts in Music degree. You may recall that at our May meeting, Chancellor McMillan discussed this restructuring by the UMD Department of Music by discontinuing 2 standalone degree programs and incorporating them into the Bachelor of Arts as sub-plans. These programs become more flexible to better meet the needs of students and result in a shorter time to degree. Additionally, the report includes the conferral of tenure on 13 new faculty positions. One quite notable inclusion is the conferral of tenure upon President-designate Rebecca Cunningham in the School of Public Health on the Twin Cities campus. The consent report is presented with my and the interim president's recommendation for approval, and I'm pleased to take any questions you might have.
Is there anybody who'd like to ask a question, make a comment, or any of that? Probably not, right? Is there a motion to recommend approval of the consent report?
Motion to approve. Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. The motion is approved. I think. Oh,
One more information.
No, something else?
She gets tenure. Is that what it is?
30 minutes?
In that department, yeah.
Oh, just kidding. I was just joking, sorry. That brings us to the information items. Provost Croson, anything to highlight? I thought that would get your attention.
Thank you, Chair Johnson. We aim to get everyone out by 5 today.
We got 5 minutes.
I'm pleased to remind you that our regular report of select faculty, student, and staff accomplishments has been included in the docket for today's meeting, along with links you can follow to receive more information. Given the extensive list of recognitions at last month's meeting, this report is much shorter, but there are 3 awards I would like to highlight. The University of Minnesota's College of Education and Human Development announced it has been awarded $1.1 million from the Shakopee Mdewakanton Sioux community to develop and deliver an Indigenous Education for All online course that is free to the public and that may even be the subject of a presentation or part of a presentation tomorrow. The Center on Causal Data Science for Child and Adolescent Maltreatment Prevention has received a 5-year, $7.6 million P50 grant from the Eunice Kennedy Shriver National Institute of Child Health and Human Development at the National Institute of Health. And Magdalena Wojcik, Research Associate Professor, was awarded a $2.5 million grant from the NIH for the project Effects of Age and Hearing Loss on Auditory Temporal Processing. So Chair Johnson, this concludes my remarks. Please join me in congratulating all of these faculty, staff, and students for their accomplishments.
It's wonderful, and congratulations to our incoming president for her appointment as well. And with that, the meeting is adjourned.